I am Mrs. Arredondo, and I'm Director of Ministry and Service.
And I'm Miss Simeone, and I work with Andrea in campus ministry, but I also do the formation of faculty and staff.
So, I mean, just thinking back to this time last year, one of the main things that we had to decide immediately on was the service trip to Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
So it was we were going to leave for spring break on Sunday, and it was the Wednesday before spring break, and we had to cancel that week because of numbers out in LA. We hadn't even started hearing about numbers locally yet. But this academic year, what were some things we were thinking?
Well, I think we had different retreat plans.
Yeah, we definitely.
And that certainly got changed from last spring because we didn't get to have our junior retreat, our senior closing retreat, so those were changed. And that has changed all of our retreat plans for this year. So, yeah, we've had to rethink some of the outdoor things or some of the ways we wanted to gather our classes. I think the other was, I think we had bigger plans for some of the mass kinds of things we were going to try.
Say. Last year was our first year of advisory masses. Prior to that, we did class masses, and they were before school on a late start day, and they were not students' favorite time of day. And so we were having pretty good response to the advisory masses, and we had changed the music and everything. So we were going to make some tweaks there to improve the advisory masses for what would be this academic year, and we didn't have the chance to do that.
Yeah, I think the other was because we had some success with the advisory masses in small groups. We also had been talking about doing some other kinds of prayer services, that would have allowed us to explore like some outside stuff. We had
Stations of the Cross.
Our stations we were going to do an outside, that was an immediate cancellation too. But we were going to do some outside gatherings and then come inside so a lot of those kinds of things that we were imagining for this year got shifted completely.
Well, I think for most people, whether it's a teacher or a business person, with a lot of response to COVID, you kind of build the plane as you're flying it. And I would say that's been a lot of this year where it's like, okay, we're masked and social distanced, and typically we would have this activity coming up. How can we do it? So October 15th, the feast day of St. Teresa of Avila and Founders Day, we did the outdoor prayer service. Well, it started indoors, and then we went outdoors with the ribbon. So just trying to think creatively of we don't like the deck of cards we've been given, but how can we still do the meaningful pieces of our community and bring together people in prayer with what we have?
Yeah, I think our other is, and it came from the experience of last spring when we wanted to gather for prayer, so we started doing some reflections online that people could join by way of Zoom is what we did, and they were led by students, and students wrote all the prayers, in some cases did music.
Yep.
And that led us to the prayer videos that we did for this year, which is a totally different way of doing prayer, because we used to do a daily prayer in the middle of the day, and one student primarily was doing it, but this has led to a lot of creativity, a lot of different ways students could be involved. We've been able to use students' art images, their own music.
And being able to honor other traditions as well. There's a lot that we can do with prayer videos that our daily prayer previously was not capturing.
And our hope had been that sharing of the heart question was going to be able to be shared someday in advisories or in some classes. We knew it probably would be hard this year with masks and distance. You can't quite hear in the same way. But our hope is that the sharing of the heart question will be able to be used eventually. We do have some staff meetings where we are doing that sharing the heart question is being shared, at least around that table. Often they're virtual though, so you can hear and all. But that's probably been one of our biggest student involvements, because they can't always gather with us here in the space.
Well, and one of the things it's forced us to do as well, and I'm grateful for this, is, we have a beautiful campus, and to be able to do our retreats outdoors. And I also love getting students off campus for retreats, but we can't do that this year. And so that senior retreat that we did on the quad, and you guys had a dance party. It's like we never would have done that if COVID hadn't happened. So there's been good ideas that have come from it.
Well, and I imagine that ringing the campuses with the ribbons would never have really occurred
Yeah,
to
we
us
never would have thought of that
if
either.
it wasn't that we had to think about the space. Now, the trouble for us is you can plan, and then if you have rain
Yeah.
or bad weather, which is what happened to us, for example, on Ash Wednesday, then you've got to retool again at the last minute. So we got our share of it this year too, not even just from last spring, but a lot of good things, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So the daily prayers, I think we'll keep doing those. It seems like it's a really good way to start the day. It's a really good way to let students creatively express their spirituality. It's a really good way to leave students with a thought, like here's the sharing of the heart question. And I actually read in one of the darts earlier in the year that a student said, like, I write the question down every single day. And so, if one student is doing that, I
Right.
think that's amazing. So I would love to keep that.
I think thinking about the outside space too, now again, that does lead us to, well, what if you have rain? But what we did for the ringing of the campus, when you look at the drone footage that we took from that, it's really pretty cool to
Yeah.
see our whole campus covered with students. It speaks to the geographic space we occupy here. So thinking about outside, probably we'll be imagining that a little more.
Yeah. Oh, in our Ash Wednesday service, that was like 3 disasters in one, because there was COVID, then there was
virtual,
weather, and
yeah.
and we didn't know if we were going to be at home or in school, but we were planning to pre-record it, so we ended up just having everyone record themselves from home. And we loved the way
It was
that
very
turned out, because
touching.
it felt really personal, because it was from people's phones.
Mhm.
So we're not going to do that from
Right.
people's phones in the future, but it just made us think, how can we do Ash Wednesday in a way that is more intimate and allows our students and our faculty staff to be our prayer leaders that day.
Yeah. I think we also are thinking, we'll try to keep looking at our God images so that they can be more culturally inclusive, more inclusive of all the aspects of God, not just again from the ones that invite us to prayer from other faith traditions, but just how can we speak in a way that invites
limit
someone
God,
into pray.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't limit God. Or, God has to fit in this box, and so if I can't pray because that doesn't speak to me, how else could I?
Yeah. Well, I think one perspective that I gained looking back to like quarantine last year, I remember, and I've shared this with students and colleagues, that it was really hard for me to work from home because my work to me felt really meaningless at that moment in time because I couldn't see you guys, and that was really hard for me. But one thing we did at that time was we did these Stations of the Resurrection videos, and I remember I would work on them and they were really beautiful, but I would be like, no one's watching these, they don't serve a purpose. But to be a year away from that now and see that they led to our morning prayer videos, which absolutely serve a purpose, is just like, it's such a good reminder to me to trust that everything happens for a reason and that everything serves a purpose and God does create good. So that's been a good lesson for me in COVID, yeah.
I think for me too, the piece we've tried, especially with faculty and staff, which of course rolls over personally, is that reliance on God's help with whatever we faced, and people's anxiety and nervousness and worry and fear in August when we were coming back, because we still didn't really know what, and it hasn't necessarily gone away, but it has helped us. We managed to do this, and we did this together. And so that motto, with the help of God, we need not fear, has really kind of shown. So that's led me to think about how that's been true in my own life, and even with some of the things that have happened this year. So that, as well as the closeness, I think, to the sisters, to the unknown they face. So we look at that picture on the wall with the 6 women going in the different directions, and we've spent more time reflecting on that kind of stuff, and so that's kind of been us in some ways, and us as a school,
Yeah.
us personally. For me, I think that connection to mission's been really, because it's all about mission. How do we go out and respond to whatever the needs of the world are?